Alright guys, welcome to my new series about endgames. My name is Dr. Gento, and in this new series I would love to share you my endgame losses while playing some blitz on chess.com, and my thinking process, also the perspective of how we should play in equalish, slightly worse, slightly better endgames, with the help of some engine analysis. So today's team will be mostly, I've heard from Grandmaster Ramesh, the coach of Pragnananda and the famous coach of Pragnananda and Aravind Chitambara. So in a queenless endgame, he says, when there are some minor pieces and a certain pawn structure which is not that imbalanced, first thing we should consider is piece play. If we have pieces that can be improved, their position, so that they will have better potential, better effect, we should prioritize that one rather than pawn play, pushing some pawns, which I always do that mistake in my games, and which costs me some losses. So this game was played in my I'm recently doing a Sveshnikov speedrun series on chess.com. It was a 3+0 game and my opponent was 2015 rated. Without further ado, let's dive into it. So I will skip the opening part and start from this position. It came from an Alpine defense. Let's first identify the elements of the position. Piece development, I have a rook out, a knight on b6. My opponent has a rook on e1, which is on a semi-open file, underdeveloped queenside pieces. And the second element, the pawn structure, well, we have 2 versus 2. I have 4 pawns, he has 3 pawns and an isolated pawn on d4. Right? So it's white to move, and my opponent played bishop e3 to defend that pawn. However, of course, Stockfish hates it. They should have simply developed, and after this they will get a very dangerous initiative with some crazy attack. But okay, it is a bit high level. So my opponent played bishop e3, I played e6. My opponent developed his knight, connected his rook. I pinned that knight, also I'm connecting my rooks. And he played rook a to c1. I played king b8, most likely automatically. However, it's a bit dubious. The better move could have been king d8, because why? We're in an endgame, and it is better if you don't get checkmated to keep your king close to the center. However, maybe you can start seeing some goals, like rook d1 and maybe d5 might come, right? In this moment though, black can simply take on c3 and they can capture 2 ways. Let's first look at rook capture c3. Now I put my beloved knight on d5. It is a fantastic outpost, it can't be kicked away by a pawn. And it also comes with a tempo. Let's say white plays rook a3, I defend my pawn, white goes back, and then black plays b6 with the help of this knight. Now this rook is a little bit misplaced, and we will simply take the open file and start some c-file operation. Now let's look at the other capture. b takes c3. So in this moment, if I play knight d5, this knight is not less stable than the previous one, because it can run into some c4 and white will get rid of this d5 outpost. However, there's a better move. Now we have another outpost, which is the c4 square, and that knight can be kicked only by a rook on b4 or a4, which we can defend at the knight. So let's say white attacks the pawn, I can play b6, rook b4, simply rook c8, and the game might have continued in that manner. Some might ask, oh, what happens after d5? It looks a bit scary, but computer says black should simply play e5 and there is no problem. Well, but I didn't play king d7, I played king b8, and my opponent gave this check. I put my king in the corner. We are in an endgame, I'm putting my king in the corner, not a wise decision. Stockfish says I should have played bishop d6, but I didn't like the trade. I wanted to keep some pieces on the board. So he went back. Once again, there is a crazy tactical shot which points out by a computer, which is like, you play bishop c7, and if I take, you simply go back and you attack g7, you attack my rook. If I want to keep my pawn away, alive like this, white simply plays h3. Now my rook is misplaced compared to the previous one where white's rook is misplaced, and then they can simply stack some material for some dangerous initiative. And but yeah, that was an irrelevant, ridiculous line. So my opponent went back after bishop f4, bishop e3, and here I thought, okay, so they have an isolated pawn, maybe it would be wise to double up on the d file. So I played the rook d7, but I can't capture that pawn with one of my rooks as long as this bishop is defended, you know. But how am I supposed to, on the other hand, how am I supposed to attack that pawn? Like, maybe if I can put my knight on c6, which will take most likely 4 moves, which is a bad plan, you know, more than 3 moves, you should simply ignore it, especially in open positions. So this is the, I shouldn't have played the rook d7. I should have simply gone for bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, or rook takes c3 in the variation that I showed. If pawn takes knight c4, if rook takes knight d5, and then fought for the open semi-open c file. Well, I play rook d7, and my opponent play a3. Now I captured it. He captured with the rook, and I doubled my rooks. So around this part of the game, I started thinking, well, it would be great if I can trade both rooks and play knight versus bishop endgame with the same pawn structure. You know, I have a feeling that would be great for black. And in this moment, my opponent played rook e to c1. He's doubling his rooks on the c file, which is logical, but this fails unfortunately tactically. You know, there are always the tactic aspect in any part of the game, opening, endgame, middle game. So this was the first mistake, and I could have punished it with e5. And after e5 they can't take because of back rank checkmate. If they want to defend that pawn, well, they can't defend it, so they should have probably after e5 played this move, take, and then I take, so black is up a pawn, and the game might have continued in that manner. So this one was missed by me, and I played a horrible blunder, which is even a bigger blunder than what my opponent played. I played a6. Now, if you want it, now I could have won the game on the spot with the same tactic. Now they push d5, and I can't take with the pawn or a rook because my knight is hanging. And if I take with the knight, well, we get back rank checkmate. Sorry for a small technical camera issue. I'm fixing it. 1 second. So this was missed by both players. I played a6. And my opponent played h3. However, this fails to the topic of this video, the element, the motto. Let's say this tactic doesn't exist, right? What white should have prioritized is piece play. Can they improve their pieces rather than pawn play? Yes, they can. White should have played king f1. But my opponent played h3. And after that I played king b8, b3, restricting my knight maybe. My knight went back to d5. Because my initial thought, I was a little bit getting obsessed with trading both rooks. So after this moment, my whole plan is, regardless, I want to trade both rooks. But there are of course other circumstances which changes the narrative of the game. My opponent played rook c4. And this is the first critical moment, let's say, where black should find a plan how to continue. My only plan is, as I told you, I was obsessed with trading both rooks, but I didn't like some bishop g5 move, so I started with h6, which is, I call it, a meaningless move. It only stops this one, but does improve my position. Well, there was a better move. There was a better piece play move where you might want to maybe find it out. So after rook c4, it is black to play. And how should black continue? Well, my knight is a great blockader, but in chess they say it is better to eat that pawn rather than blockade that pawn before it gets too late. So the best move could have been knight e7. Now my knight is landing, for instance, to f5. Simply target that pawn, and you cannot defend that pawn easily. Let's say my opponent sees, oh, maybe he wants to play knight f5, so let's play g4, which is a mistake. Why it is a mistake? It is a pawn. Well, it is a mistake by many reasons. It is a pawn play where they could have make a piece play. And also it weakens their king maybe. Okay, we're in an endgame, not that weakening, but now instead of knight f5, I can go knight c6. It doesn't. I don't have only one square to attack that pawn. I have two squares, and if they try to defend that passively, now e5 fails. No, they have to give up that pawn. So that could have been easy. So rather than g4, let's say. We have seen that principle if you can improve one of your pieces. So how can white stop that? Knight f5, knight c6, bishop g5 could have been crazy good. Why? Well, my mouse, I saw bishop g5, my mouse immediately went to f6. But look at this, they give a check, I go up or a7. Now white plays rook e1, and I can't defend that pawn, you know. So bishop g5 could have been way better piece play move to anticipate my plan. And if I initially my thought process was to trade the rooks. Let's say I start with rook c7. I want to trade both rooks, you know. Then I would be happy camper. But white simply ignores. They should not take it. You know, what white should do is improve their king, and if I take, they don't capture with the rook, so they simply take with the pawn, get rid of my outpost, and maybe later they will get a pass pawn, you know. Or if let's say they start trading, but that means I have to waste so many tempi to trade the rooks, so that white can simply bring their king to the center, and I still insist on my plan. I want to trade the rooks, but look at the placement of the kings now. His king is very active compared to my king, like 2-3 tempo. I need to compensate the king placements, and white king simply dominates my king, like king c4. Let's say king c6. They can play a4 maybe, and then after b5. Now they can simply go back, and we have traded some pawns on the queen side, and white king will simply, now if I push something like f5, this bishop, I give some squares for this bishop. As soon as my knight leaves that square, now this bishop might become active, you know. So that would be a wrong strategy, this double trading both rooks, because chess is a tempo based game. But I didn't find the correct move, knight e7. I played h6. Because, you know, in an amateur's mind, you want to push pawns, you know, and you think that, oh, I'm grabbing space for sure. So my opponent played king f1. I played g5. So this move is a double-edged move. Engine says it is the best move, but it is quite double-edged because I'm putting my pawns on the same color with my opponent's bishop, and this might give them counter-attacking chances maybe later with h4 or g3 f4. So my opponent played king e2. I went for the initial plan with rook c7. He played g3, didn't trade the rooks, which was wise, and I doubled my rooks, and he couldn't resist the temptation of trading both rooks this time, which I would be a happy camper. So instead of this trade, what white should have considered is, for instance, f4 move, you know. And if I take, they can maybe take him this way, because their king will be very active, and now they can most likely consider trading the things. And if I play f6, for instance, now white king simply comes in, and black will regret playing h6 g5. But okay, he couldn't resist the temptation of trading both rooks, and he traded. Once again, rook c4 could have been a clever move. So he played bishop d2. I played king c6, trying to bring the king to the center, and the same motto, white. If they have a piece to improve, they should prioritize that one. But my opponent played a4. So what will be the correct move? Of course, king d3. And after a4, so we have now a dilemma that black should answer. We have a great square on d5, which is an outpost. It is on a light square, can't be kicked by a bishop. But I have two pieces that they voluntarily want to sit on, my knight and my king. Which piece should sit on d5? First question to answer. And I intuitively answered, okay, my king should sit on d5, and then I play knight f6. I'll play king d5, but a bad approach. Okay, king should sit there, but where should knight sit there? You should also ask that question. So you can once again pause the video if you want, and find the correct winning plan for black. So correct winning plan should have been knight e7. Why knight e7? Well, if I put my knight on f6, it can only jump to e4, but my opponent can simply play king d3 and control that square, and it has only the purpose, it will only have the purpose of controlling this king coming in, for instance. But knight e7 could have been way better, and after king d3, simply black plays king d5. Now we reach a position where computer says it is like minus 0.4, but practically it will get a little bit difficult to hold this position with white. So let's see, what are the candidates move for white? I want to play maybe knight f5, knight c6, attack that pawn on d4, right? And forcing them to defend passively, bishop e3, bishop c3. So let's say my opponent starts passively. However, we should always think: is there an active piece play rather than passive play? Let's say bishop e3. I play knight f5. Now I simply restricted these pieces to defend that pawn. White simply plays a5 for say. Well, what is the point of a5? Well, they simply want to fix this pawn on b7 maybe. And this pawn is on a dark square. Maybe bishop can defend if I try to attack with my knight. But knight a5, knight e7. My knight is leading to c6. Let's say white waits. Knight c6. White simply waits, attacking both of them. And now we go back. White waits. Knight f5. White waits. So in this moment we can realize oh, I improved all of my pieces. They're at their maximum potentials. You know, my knight, my king. So we can consider the second step. Let's make a pawn play. Now black can play f6 with the idea of maybe h4, h5, g4. You know, that could have been so clean. So instead of bishop e3, there is a interesting move for white. After knight e7, rather than king d3, because when I play king d5, they can play king d3. White can play bishop b4, trying to attack my pawn, my knight. I play knight f5. I'm attacking the pawn. King d3, king d5, and we reached a similar position. Our pieces are on their maximum square, and this is literally Zugzwang for white's pieces, right? The king can't move, bishop can only move backwards to defend our pawn. So we can make a pawn play, and in this moment, rather than f6, we can play h5. When this bishop was on d3, we couldn't play h5 because this pawn would be full. Now after h5, let's say white plays passively. This is how computers or the top players would squeeze probably. We can play now g4, hg, and now it is a narrow path for white. In actual fact, white has only move according to Stockfish to hold this game, which is a5. Because if you play, for instance, c3, let's see how to grind this down. We play b5, they take, we take, bishop b2, b4, king a, bishop a1, and now my knight. Look at the domination of this knight to this bishop. Poor bishop only holding this pawn. Let's say white simply waits. Now we attack this pawn, king e3, f6. Now maybe we will even start considering pushing this pawn, or you know, we will feint. Black will feint white. Let's say. So this was after the active play with bishop b4. Or there is another active move, which, excuse me, not here, king d3, king d5, and now f4. gf, bishop takes f4, now white bishop becomes active, you know. It can also defend the pawn with actively, like e5, or throughout this diagonal. He attacks, white attacks the a6 pawn. I play h5, and maybe they will have some action on the king side too. Say bishop c7, knight f5, bishop e5, and it's hard to improve now our position because that pawn on e5 is well defended by the knight. This pawn is also well defended. The game would most likely end in a draw. So, back to the original position. After a4, I played the wrong move, knight fc. You have seen knight d7, how knight d7 was so challenging for white. My pawn played king f3, and now my knight is doing only restricting king counter from coming in. I played king d5, my opponent played bishop e3, I played knight e4. Now he decided to jump in. I gave a check not to allow king h5. He went back, and then I played b5, which is that a good move? It's a pawn play move. No, is there a better piece to improve? Yes, but a bit difficult. Knight g8 could have been a better move. Why knight g8? Because now, if this king wants to come in, now my king also dives in to e4. And if you look at now, king can't attack this pawn, so they have to start some h4 action. Let's say king h5. Now black can consider, so this king is lovely place, maybe king d3 or b5 was pointed out by engine, and after ab h4 we can go king d3, and here probably I will win one of these pawns. They have to take, and then bishop g5. Now I win this pawn, and the game might have continued in that manner. But I couldn't play this knight g8 move, and I played b5 instead of knight g8. And after take, does this trade favor me? Favor black? No. He played h4, which is a correct approach. Now it's time to regret for black to play this h6 g5 action very well earlier. So I took, and then I started to think some goals, because if I lose that pawn, this pawn will be an outside pass pawn, and knight. It is a well-known fact that knights are not the greatest pieces to block the outside passes. So I play h5. My pawn play king f4, and now once again there is an only move which holds black in the game, which is knight h7. Well, knight h7 is a passive move, it looks like, but also in an endgame where there are very few pieces left on the board, the passive moves can be tolerated way better than, let's say, there are some pieces on the board, even queens on the board, and you make a passive move. The passiveness of that level is 10 times worse than this one. Because after knight h7, as you have seen with the arrow, black will simply play f6 and bring the knight back. So it is a one tempo passive move. It will become active after f6. Let's say white also waits with f3, right? Now we simply play f6 and then reroute my knight and simply continue the game. King e3, I don't know. Now my knight can jump to g6 or d7 and then get back into the game. But I failed with this knight h7. I play knight d7, and after this I lose the pawn and I lost the game. Maybe I was down on time. This could have been lost the game a little bit longer, but it is still lost. So the principle in an endgame, if you can improve your pieces, you should definitely prioritize that one. We have seen both this principle getting violated by both players, by me and my opponent. Knight f6 is so this is the most critical moment, I would say. The idea was correct, king on d7, but I didn't answer the second question: where does the knight go? You know, to bring the king there, move your knight to any square. No, it is wrong. I should have played knight e7. So that's it from me for this game. I hope you enjoyed some equally endgame and how to play them. I also enjoyed this analysis. I hope I will learn from my mistakes. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.